What's going on, guys? I've got another video for you coming out. Once again, I am trying to upload Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday for you guys, 3 times a week long form, 3 times a week short form, possibly more. Today on the agenda is the motor for the 2017 STI. If you are watching this video for the first time, it'd be greatly appreciated if you subscribe and like the video. It helps me out a bunch. But we bought this 2017 STI pretty cheap. It's got obviously some cut fenders and rear quarters. I do have the flares in the back of the car. And the plan for this one, I have a EJ20x in the barn that will be going into this one. I bought it with a blown motor, cut flares, hail damage, but it was cheap enough to where it made sense. You can see some of the hail damage here and on the roof, but we have to time this long block, get the engine wiring harness on it, and get the intake manifold on it, and then we'll be on to dropping it in and maybe have it running this week. We'll see. I got to send over the mod list to my tuner. He typically has a 3-day response time, so I got to get that together, get it sent over so we can get our map by the time we want to start it up. Here is the long block. I've got a big mess over here right now, but we are putting this intake manifold on it. This is from my 2007 STI that not too long ago blew the motor and we tore it down just because I didn't want to continue with rebuilding it. But we're going to have that purple intake manifold, that neon alternator cover. Obviously an STI turbo, we'll use the factory turbo off that once we get it rebuilt. And we're doing injectors, flex fuel kit, a few other things like that, a downpipe intake, nothing special. Shoot for close to that 300 horsepower mark, maybe a little bit less, not entirely sure. But let's jump into getting this long block assembled. I've put it off for too long working on other projects, which we have plenty of, but we got to knock this out. It's going to be some time lapses, some just me talking about what I'm doing. Let's get into it. I apologize for the rooster making noise in the back. He's very annoying sometimes. I wish he wasn't there, but it is not my place, so I cannot complain too much. In the last video when we were working on this motor, I took the valve covers off, checked valve lash, resealed, took the oil pump off. 3 of the screws were loose on the back, which is pretty common apparently. Tightened those down, put some Loctite on them, and resealed that. Now we're going to get seals in here, time it up, change the coolant crossover pipe, and we're going to be about ready for the intake manifold and wiring harness. Then after that, it's going to be about ready to drop in the car. I did also put an IAG oil pan and baffle in there for a little bit extra oil capacity and more reliable oil delivery. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. We've got a 6-puck clutch that's also going to go in this one. Yeah, just basic stuff to typically shoot for that 300-ish wheel horsepower mark. It is a 2-liter, so I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with what they are able to produce versus the 2.5. I know less torque. I'm not sure horsepower number if that's going to be really any different. Let's get some of these seals in here. Got some parts from Subaru. The guys at Subaru take really good care of me. I spend a lot of money there. I guess I'm missing one of the cam seals, unfortunately. Let me see if I have one somewhere and then we can order a replacement, but I don't think I do. Well, I was just being dumb because I forgot that last week I did order another cam seal and my dad did pick it up and I just forgot about it. And I also got a flywheel done for the 17 at the machine shop, and I also got another one done just for a spare. So we are good to go, so we're going to do that. I was just being dramatic. How's it going? All right, let's actually get some stuff done. We got the cam seal. We're ready to rip. Let's get this guy. Oh my gosh. Let's get this timed and ready to rip. I don't have any fancy cam installation or cam seal installation tool. I don't have anything like that. I probably should. Maybe someday, if my channel continues to grow, we can work with Company 23. I do have a few of their tools, like for the cam gears. Those are kind of necessary, at least ideally. You can do it without them, but it's not very good. I know they have a lot of little tools for seal installation to hold the flywheel. Yeah, I don't know what else they've got. But if I think a tool is necessary, then I'll buy it. But I don't think they're all necessary. But let's get these installed. I guess I'll kind of show you how I do these. It's not, like I said, ideal because I don't have the install tool, but I've never had a problem with any of them leaking. So I kind of just press them in lightly with my fingers, and then I'll get a big socket or a pipe. Make sure there's no rough edges on the pipe or burrs because you can cut this, and I just put it on there. Tap it with a mallet, and it's good to go. You just kind of have to eyeball when you pull the seal out how far you should put the new one in. So make sure you pay attention doing that. There's also lots of videos, I'm sure, that will tell you, but that's what some of those tools from Company 23, they also, not only do they make it easier to just install them in general, they also only install them to the correct depth, so it won't let you install them any farther, which is pretty cool because some people, I'm sure, struggle with that. I am going to continue with this content making style. Like I said, just me talking while I'm working, talking to you guys watching. You are watching again. I cannot thank you enough. We're slowly growing. I think we're just over 3,000 subscribers, which is not bad. I can't really expect it to grow super fast. I think we have the most subscribers or followers on Facebook. I have like 36,000 on there, I think. That was from a couple reels that went crazy. I say that in quotes because they did pretty good, but not insane, but that helped a lot. And then I think the next most is TikTok. I think we have about 5,500 on there maybe. And then I think then YouTube and then Instagram, which is kind of weird that Instagram has the least amount, but doesn't really matter. So I've got a big socket here that should work on this side, but I don't think is going to work on this side because these cams stick out a little farther. So we'll have to find something else for that side. So yeah, I just kind of work this in until I think it looks good. There we go. I got to do this crank seal one also, which that one can be a little bit more difficult because you'd need a long pipe for that one to get around the crank. This rooster, dude, is starting to annoy me. I can assure you, I will not have a rooster when I get my own place. I don't mind it every once in a while, but when it's constant, like it's like every 30 seconds all morning long is when it's annoying. I don't care one time every 10 minutes, but you'll hear him again in right now. So he does that all the time. It can be annoying when I'm trying to record. I think we're good there. For the ones where I can't get over it with a socket, might just grab a small little mallet and work my way around. Like I said, I've never really had problems with these leaking, but I'm also pretty gentle when I do it. I can see some of you guys just going ham on this and causing a bunch of damage. This is not working ideally, so I'm going to try and find something else. I don't know why I just didn't do this. So off topic of working on cars, me and my girlfriend are looking for houses currently. Ideally, we'd be buying in about 8 months, 6 months, kind of just next spring or summer. And man, houses, for what you get, are expensive, which I already kind of knew, but it really proved to be true even more so when we started looking at them. There's probably we've only looked at maybe 5 houses, and out of those 5, there's only been one house that I was like, okay, this is actually a decent amount for what you're paying. The rest have been like, this is all you're getting for X amount. We'll see how that pans out. But it's tough because we can't just buy a little house in the city with no property. If we did that, I would have to go rent a shop, which is not impossible. Obviously, I could definitely do that. But we'd much rather buy a place with some land and at least a 2-stall garage that I could work out of to start while we get a barn built and going. But obviously, in a perfect world, we'd buy something that needed some work because I want something that I can put a little bit of money into. So I'm not buying something that's all done up already. And something that's got a nice barn would be awesome. This is a 30 by 40 barn, so if I could get close to this, it'd be cool. While also, though, being in a good location, because we need to be somewhere reasonable so that my girlfriend doesn't have to drive too far into work, which obviously someday I'd love to be able to not have her work, or I should say work for me, but we are not there yet. Gotta start somewhere. But that makes trying to find all those things, a good location, land, and a barn, and a house that needs work that's not a complete dump, that we can at least live in it. All those things are proving to be a challenge to find, which I'm not saying I didn't expect it. We'll find something eventually. It's just gonna take some extra work, extra searching. All right, that looks good. So now we can jump on to getting this thing timed up. I haven't decided what I want to do on the water pump yet because the JDM water pump doesn't have a tube that goes over to the oil cooler that the USDM car has. I'm going to try it without the oil cooler, so I might just run the JDM water pump, but I also don't want that water pump to go bad, so I might just put a cap on the water pump that I've got. This is the little outlet that mine has that would go over to where the oil cooler sits right here, and the JDM one doesn't have that. And this water pump I think only has 10,000 miles on it, so I'd rather use this one because this one, the other one probably has 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 miles. I kind of looked at them and I think they're almost exactly the same except it has a port, so I might just put a cap on there, hose clamp that, and it should be fine. And then if we want to add an oil cooler down the road, we can. I think I'm actually definitely going to do that. I think we might need to change some of these lines. I'm not sure. I think we might. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. This is my first time doing a JDM motor. So you guys, if you're learning from this video, you're learning with me. But let's get the water pump on. Then we'll get these plastic guys on here. Then we can start getting the cam gears on and the pulleys and then the timing belt. I do have a new water pump gasket. I'm not a barbarian. I'm not going to use the old water pump gasket. That would just be silly. That would be crazy. We're not going to do that. If you watched the last video, definitely make sure you don't put blue rags in your oil pan. I don't know how to link videos in another video, but if I can figure it out, I'll link the video where I pulled the motor on my blown 07 STI, and this is the reason it blew up. So make sure you go watch that if you want to see what happened. A little bit of oil on there so we don't rip the O-rings. There we go. All right, I'm probably going to throw the rest of this on time lapse just because I got to charge my phone. Maybe the battery in my phone is bad or I'm just on it too much. I'm probably just on it too much. I'll see you guys after the time lapse. Hopefully it's all timed. I might record doing the intake manifold. I might time lapse that too. I don't know. Regardless, I'll see you after the time lapse. A lot of times these covers that go behind the cam gears will be cracked or damaged and should be replaced because eventually they will start letting in more debris. I'm recording this little part right here, then we'll jump back onto the time lapse, but I cannot stress how important this is right here. You can see on this cam, there's a dowel right there, and inside here, there's also a hole for that dowel. Now, I could put this cam gear on like that, and it may look like it's on there, but it is not actually attached to the cam. See how it just spins? It is not attached to the cam, and if you bolt that down, it will just push that dowel in, or it will gouge out the back of this cam gear, and it will mess a lot of things up, and we do not want to do that. So every one of these cam gears spins slowly, and you'll watch it will click into place right there, and then it should only go back and forth to where the lobes start to push on the valves. So then you know it's seated correctly. Do that with all of these. I have seen that messed up before and it is not good. Causes a ton of problems, so don't do that. Make sure you get those seated correctly. Now we are on to torquing down the cam gears to the proper torque spec, installing the timing kit and the timing belt. This kit was pulled from my 2007 STI and it only had about 200 miles on it, so I decided to just reuse it all. We've got this thing all timed up. I've got some tape on here so I remember to torque this down when I get the flywheel on the back. Now to the water pump outlet that I plugged. I don't do customer work, and I would never do this on a customer car if I did, but it's my own car and I will order a cap that will fit a lot better. But for now, that's gonna have to do. Let's get this intake manifold on. I got to put this wiring harness on it. I've got a massive mess here. But once we get the intake on, we're going to be done with this video. Next video will be dropping the motor into the car and hopefully getting it running this week. I do also have to change out this cam sensor on each side to a 3-pin. This is a 2-pin, so we'll see how that goes as well. But we're getting close. Let's see if we can get this intake manifold assembled and dropped on here. So this intake manifold was on my heavily modded 07 STI, so there's no fuel lines. There's no evap stuff or anything like that on it. So I got to swap all that stuff from this one onto this one, get the hard fuel lines onto this one. So I think they're the exact same. I'm going to swap throttle bodies. Got to get this turbo inlet in there. The blue and the purple might look a little weird together, but I want this purple manifold and that neon colored alternator cover. So this is what we're going to do. I think that's about all the explaining I have to do. So I'll throw this on time lapse again and see you guys after the time lapse. Swapping over all these factory components to this purple manifold was actually easier than I expected it to be. Didn't take me too long. Got that all wrapped up. Everything lined up perfectly, and we moved on to modifying the cam sensor to fit this motor. As you can see, the 3-pin sensor I need to install does not line up correctly with the bolt hole, so I took out the sleeve with this bolt extractor. Then I unprofessionally used a drill bit to make the hole larger. Just like so, it actually worked out better than I expected. The plastic was pretty soft. we got the hole large enough to where we could put the bolt in. So we installed the 3-pin cam sensor. Hopefully this works out. I looked on the cam where the cam sensor reads and it looks exactly the same as the factory one, so I don't see why it wouldn't work. Okay, we've got the header on, the up pipe. I did have to hammer in a little bit of this heat shield right here because it was hitting this bolt, but not a big deal. Again, this is a personal car, so I'm fine with it. This is the turbo from the 17 STI. I don't know the condition of it, so I'm going to rebuild it. When I say rebuild, we're going to put rebuild in quotes because it's not technically a rebuild. I'm just replacing the whole center cartridge. So I pull off the compressor housing and I pull off the exhaust housing, and then I put them onto a new complete center cartridge with wheels already assembled, already balanced, ready to go. I've done this before. I did a video on this a while ago, so I will try and link that video either in the description or in the corner here. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I think they cost 275 bucks or 300 bucks. So it's even a little bit cheaper than sending your turbo out to get rebuilt, and you get brand new wheels and you can do it yourself for a quicker turnaround. So I'm not going to show doing this because I already have that video. So go check that out if you're curious how to do it. But then we're going to get the turbo mounted up, get all the lines placed here. I have to figure out where to route my braided oil line because I'm going to do that. Once we do that, we're going to put the coolant crossover back on, and then our assembled intake manifold with a blue and purple and neon color scheme will be going back on, and that will be the end of this video. I'm extremely behind in terms of the work that I thought I was going to be able to get done and editing videos and meal prepping for my meals, but it is what it is. There might only be 2 videos this week, which I apologize, but I'm going to do what I can do. So let me just throw you guys on time lapse again for the coolant crossover, putting the turbo on, and then getting the intake manifold on. I 100% have slacked on getting a video out for you guys, but it is what it is. I can't be perfect every time. I try and do 3 times a week. This week is going to be just 2 times. This clip you should see today, which is Thursday. I'm about to drop the intake manifold on. We've got the turbo on. We've got our oil lines rerouted. We've got the coolant crossover, all that sort of stuff on. So now I think we are good to drop on the intake manifold. So I'm going to record that and talk while I'm doing that, just kind of explaining a few little things. The intake manifold is a lot easier to put on when the motor is out of the car because you can look at different angles to make sure the gasket's aligned right. You can make sure everything's plugged in. It's just much simpler, but you can't always have the motor out of the car, so you got to do what you got to do. I think this knock sensor is the last thing I got to put in here. Hopefully I don't have problems with this knock sensor like I did on my last STI, but I don't see why that would happen, so I'm not too worried about it. I like to pull these rags out quickly. Any debris that's sitting on them, I want to get out as quick as possible. That's just how I do it. Don't really know if that's the right way, but that is what I do. Take a look down in here, make sure we didn't drop anything. All right, I think we are good there. Got some new intake manifold gaskets. If you're not using new gaskets when you're putting something together, come on. I just don't see the point in using used gaskets unless they're literally very, very new in terms of like they were just put on or something. You just had to pull the intake manifold back off. Especially these aren't like a crushed gasket. If it was a crushed gasket, a gasket that once it's crushed, that's it. That's the one-time use. Definitely don't reuse those. Also, especially if it's something critical, if it's something that's easy to swap out, say that my exhaust manifold gaskets don't seal properly or something, I can swap those out pretty easy. But if you're using something that's a little bit more critical, I wouldn't even mess with it. I would just get a new gasket. All right, intake manifold. Let's see how this guy wants to go on. See if it's going to be nice to us. Is it going to not be nice to us? What's it going to be like? I have to snake some of this in there. Once again, sometimes it can be a little bit tough getting some of these things on. What am I doing? I gotta put the injectors in still. I did receive the O-rings from Injector Dynamics, so I don't know what I'm doing not putting them on while the intake manifold's out. That would just be a not very wise situation. Yeah, this one's a little torn up. I might, not sure if I'm going to replace all of them or only the ones that look a little torn up. I got a big mess. Injectors are in now. Now we can get this intake manifold on. When putting the intake manifold on, like I explained in one of the last videos, one of the more challenging and important things, especially when you're doing this in the car, because it's even more difficult and challenging than it is outside of the car, is getting this turbo inlet properly onto the turbo. Sometimes gotta make unexpected changes, but that would be part of putting cars together, especially modified cars. That is just part of it. I got the intake manifold bolted down, all the plugs plugged in, and we're good to go. I'm going to wrap this video up here. Intake manifold is bolted on. We've got our fuel pressure sensor ran. We've got our Cobb flex fuel kit ran. We have everything plugged in that we can for right now. The next video, we'll be dropping this motor into the 2017 STI. This was kind of just like a general put together video of this motor and kind of going over a few things that are needed to be changed for the EJ20x swap into one of these newer cars. Maybe you guys will want to do this sometime. Maybe it'll save you some money. It is quite a bit cheaper than going with a new OEM short block. But yeah, so far so good. This is going to be an interesting engine bay with this purple. This purple looks darker on camera than it is. It's pretty dark, but it's not as dark as it looks. And we're going to have blue. I'll probably switch this out, maybe not. And then we've got a red air oil separator that will be sitting here. And we've got that neon alternator cover that's going to sit right in front of this. So it's going to be a little interesting. If you guys are watching, especially if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. It helps me out a ton if you guys subscribe, like the video, drop a comment. I reply to all the comments that I can. So let me know what you think down below. I hope your guys' projects are going well. I hope you're doing well in life. And I'll see you guys in the next video.